Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Houston Sports Talk back into the video day, and today we're going to be talking about what the New England Patriots offseason plan needs to be after hiring Mike Vrabel as their next head coach. Mike Vrabel, who was with the Patriots from 2001 to 2008 and was a big part of their defense through, some really good seasons for New England, is returning to New England as the head coach. He was with the Titans from 2018 all the way until last year, and 4 of his 6 years in Tennessee were winning seasons. And had made 3 playoff trips and was 2-3 in the playoffs, went to an AFC championship game with the Titans, and even was the man to lead the Tennessee Titans to a playoff win that would be Tom Brady's last game as a New England Patriot. Let's get into what the offseason needs to look like for this New England Patriots team. I said it. I'm going to say it again. This Patriots team right here is the best team you can go into being a head coach. I don't think there's a better fit for a head coach than this team. I'm not talking about what the team looks like right now, but I'm talking about the tools you have the tools and the toolbox that you have to build. And those tools I'm talking about is, one, having a franchise quarterback who's a stud and has looked like a stud with the worst wide receiver group in football in Drake May. That's tool number 1. Tool number 2 is having the number 4th overall pick, a very, very, very high second-round pick, and a lot of draft picks throughout the draft. So good draft picks. And then the third tool, and I think probably the most important tool for this team, is having $130 million in cap space to spend. This team has, you come in as a head coach, you have so many tools. Franchise QB, you have a top 4 pick and a lot of good draft picks after that, and then you have the buttload of money to spend in free agency. And we're going to go over what the Patriots need to do to, what they need to do. What do they need to do with the draft picks they have? What do they need to do with the money they have to spend? Let's get into it. I'm going to start off with an important detail that doesn't have to do with the draft, free agency, anything like that. It's getting an offensive coordinator, and I think it has to be Josh McDaniels. Josh McDaniels has to come back to New England for the 3rd time. Terrible head coach. Not working out for him with head coaching jobs. We know that. He's 20-33 as a head coach with Denver and Las Vegas. Absolutely terrible. But this guy is a genius offensive coordinator, play caller, and he's been with New England. I think for a young quarterback like Drake May to work with someone who has been there with Tom Brady, has worked with Tom Brady as young as 28 years old, that would be great for Drake May and this offense. But that's the first key. The second key, it's not adding in, it's subtracting. Kendrick Bourne. You got to get rid of Kendrick Bourne. The Patriots have plans to add in wide receivers this offseason. Let's get rid of one. Kendrick Bourne has been with New England since 2021, has had some good years. Great first year in New England in 2021 with 800 receiving yards with Mac Jones. This past year, only 12 games, 9 starts, 305 receiving yards. He's making a lot of money. There's no need to keep paying him. Cut him. You'll clear some cap space by cutting Kendrick Bourne. You already have so much cap space, $133 million or $130 million, which is number 1 in the league. This will give you more money to spend by cutting Kendrick Bourne. So that's the first thing. Now, the second thing we'll get to is the draft. You have the number 4 overall pick. Something that is key when having a franchise quarterback is protecting him, getting him protection. And you have to draft the best offensive tackle in this draft, and that's Will Campbell. So that's one thing. And the next thing I get into is running back. You need to draft a running back, and I think to the point to drafting a running back is in the 2nd round when you reunite Drake May with his former teammate at North Carolina, Amarion Hampton. Now, here's the tricky thing. I think this will have to be with the Patriots. The Patriots are at pick number 38 in the 2nd round. And right before pick number 38, you got your old buddy Tommy and the Raiders at 37. The Raiders had the worst run offense in football this past season. And I'm pretty sure if it's not 37, if at 37 it's not Jalen Milroe getting picked at 37, it's going to be Amarion Hampton. At 36, you have the Jacksonville Jaguars sitting there at 36. So if I'm the Patriots, you call up the Jaguars and you offer them, hey, we're going to give you 38 and maybe our fourth or fifth rounder this year, and we're gonna move up to 36, and that's when you draft Amarion Hampton, who in 12 games this year, North Carolina had over 600 rushing yards, 15 rushing touchdowns, was even very solid on the receiving end with almost 400 receiving yards and 2 receiving touchdowns, and that was only in 12 games. Last year, Drake May, he had 1,500 rushing yards with 15 rushing touchdowns. Him and Drake May connected on over 200 receiving yards and a touchdown last year in North Carolina. So I think that would be an amazing connection. I think Stevenson, Ramondre Stevenson, is a great running back, but so many fumbling issues this year in 2024. You have to try to get away from that. And I think Stevenson is a tremendous running back, but Hampton, not as big of a fumbling issue as Stevenson, and a lot of chemistry with Drake May. That could be key. Let's get into the next guy. I think this team should be drafting in the third round. I think it's something in the 90s for this Patriots team. I think you get a wide receiver, and this isn't the only wide receiver I have them at again. But from Texas, Matthew Golden. Matthew Golden had 987 receiving yards and 9 receiving touchdowns in 16 games for Texas this year. And I think him and Drake May would have a lot of chemistry. As a Longhorns fan, I've watched Golden a lot. I think he'd be a great fit. So let's get to free agency now. Free agency is really important. You have 100 after Bourne gets cut, maybe a couple other players get cut. You'll have about $140 million to spend, if not more. So number one, Matthew Golden's great. I think he's going to be a great player. Love him. Hook 'em horns. But he's not a number one wide receiver. And nobody else that's on this roster right now is. So you go get your number one and you sign T. Higgins. T. Higgins this year with Cincinnati played only 12 games. Only 12 games with Cincinnati. And still almost had 1,000 receiving yards at 911 with 10 touchdowns. And that's playing with someone who won the Triple Crown in Jamar Chase. And he still put up those numbers. That's how good T. Higgins is. He had back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons in 2021 and 2022. He had 700 receiving yards in 2023 while still missing 5 games. And he'd be an elite target for Drake May. And you have the ability to offer him the bag and make sure Cincinnati is not, Cincinnati, you're not going to outbid us. Chargers, you're not going to outbid us. We're going for it. We're going for the throat. Okay. All right. Now, you got to protect Drake May some more, right? You can move Will Campbell to right tackle and sign probably one of the best left tackles in free agency, Ronnie Stanley, one-time Pro Bowler, one-time All-Pro with Baltimore, who started all 17 games for Baltimore this year. And then you have a great tackle duo with Stanley and Campbell, and that'd be tremendous for the Patriots. And I'm going to keep it going with the offensive side of things because I have a couple more offensive guys I think need to be picked up. And then the other guy I have is a wide receiver who's very familiar with Mike Vrabel. Has 2 connections with him in his career. And this guy would definitely come in and be the number 2 guy next to T. Higgins. And that's DeAndre Hopkins, a 5-time Pro Bowl, 3-time All-Pro. DeAndre Hopkins was on the same team with Mike Vrabel with Houston. Vrabel was a defensive coach in Houston. I think he was, as a Texans fan, I feel like I should know this, but I believe he was our defensive coordinator. That's what got him the Tennessee job. And so he was a coach for Hopkins in Houston. And I mean, he was a coach. He was a coach for Hopkins in Houston. Although, I mean, it's not like they were, I don't know how much interaction they had in Houston because, I mean, Hopkins is playing wide receiver. Vrabel is playing or coaching on the defensive side of things. But Vrabel was so interested in Hopkins. He brought him in last year in Tennessee. Hopkins was with the Titans last year, with Vrabel's last year in Tennessee. I wouldn't be surprised if Vrabel goes after Hopkins again with the need of wide receiver for this Patriots team. He's a 5-time Pro Bowler, 3-time All-Pro. Obviously, he's not playing as good as he was before. This year, 16 games, 8 game starts, 80 targets, 56 receptions, 610 receiving yards, and 5 touchdowns. But he'd be a nice fit for this Patriots team to add in, and I think they'd probably be done at the wide receiver position. Let's move on. The next one I want to go over is backup quarterback. Drake May is a great quarterback, right? But there were a couple of injury issues. Like against the Chargers, had a little concussion issue. There was a game against the Jets earlier this year where he got hurt, banged up, had to leave. Jacoby Brissett had to come in and step up, and they actually beat the Jets. So if Drake May goes down, you want to have a good guy to come in and replace him. I think this guy has a connection to Mike Vrabel, and it's Jameis Winston. This past year, Vrabel has been working with the Cleveland Browns in his first year, being away from the Titans. And Jameis Winston, I think, is a good locker room guy. And that's great, especially for a team that's going to be trying to go over the hump, after being 4-13. You want a good locker room guy. And I think that'd be great. And you also want to be a guy who has starting experience to come in for Drake May, God forbid anything happens, and also be maybe a veteran leader for Drake May. And I think that'd be great, especially if Jacoby Brissett is potentially on his way out. Jameis Winston this year started 7 games for the Browns. And in those 7 games, he went 2-5. Although, look, it was for the Browns. And he had some good football. He had some bad football. Obviously, Jameis throws a lot of picks. But threw 181 for 296, 61 completion percentage, 2,121 yards, 13 passing touchdowns, 12 picks. Obviously, he had that season where he threw 30 touchdowns, 30 picks, 33 touchdowns, 33 picks. And, but I think it's more of what he brings for the locker room and knowing you have a veteran experience quarterback as your backup and the locker room as well. Now, Austin Hooper, backup tight end, is a free agent. I don't really see them bringing back. I don't really see them bringing a lot of their own free agents back. And that's why I think you go to a guy in Carolina like Tommy Tremble. Tommy Tremble is a really good tight end. Obviously, he's not the top tight end in Carolina. Well, he kind of is the top tight end in Carolina. But 12 games, 11 starts this year, 32 targets, 23 receptions, 234 receiving yards, and 2 touchdowns. But I think the more important thing with Tommy Tremble, is he's a great blocker. If you're going to have guys like Hampton and Stevenson who are explosive on the run, and Antonio Gibson who's explosive on the catch, having a great blocking tight end like Tommy Tremble can be very key for an offense like the Patriots. If they draft Hampton, then you have 3 really solid running backs. But that's really it. That's really it for the offense. And I want to get to the defense now because there are a lot of needs for the defense as well. And it starts with the pass rushing. You need a pass rusher. You need to go after a pass rusher. And I think the number one fit for this team is going after Chase Young, a young pass rusher. I think he'd be a really good fit for this Patriots defense. 1-time Pro Bowler, Defensive Rookie of the Year in 2020. This past year with the Saints, played 17 games. He had 3 passes defensed, 1 forced fumble, 5.5 sacks, 31 tackles, 8 tackles for loss. I think I'd like his addition with the Patriots. The next guy I want to go over is a guy who's spent a lot of time in this league, and that can be good for a team. Veteran experience, like I said, and you need a defensive tackle really bad. So go out there and get a guy who's played so much time in this league, and that's Calais Campbell, currently on the Miami Dolphins. He's a 6-time Pro Bowler, 1-time All-Pro, and this year with the Dolphins actually didn't have that bad of a year. With Miami this season, he had 5.5, 6 sacks, I believe. Let me make sure. It was 5. It was like 5.5 sacks, 45 tackles. Another thing is, he's he's also, I mean, spent some time with Jacksonville, so Mike Vrabel has gone up against him quite a bit. I mean, like being, he's faced Mike Vrabel a lot. Like 2000, from 2017 to 2019, he was with Jacksonville, where Mike Vrabel was always in that division. Like 2017, Mike was still with the Texans, and so Mike was still with the Texans in 2017. Faced Calais Campbell twice a year. 2018, 2019 being with the Titans, faced Calais Campbell twice a year. Then in his time with Baltimore, I mean, the Ravens and the Titans were playing a lot, and that was a rivalry in those years, and played Calais Campbell a lot. And Calais Campbell is definitely a veteran with a lot of experience and has some great attributes that he can bring to this Patriots defense, especially when they need a defensive tackle. Like I mentioned, 5 sacks this year, not 5.5, 5 sacks for Miami, 52 tackles, 12 tackles for loss. I think he'd be a great fit and maybe a cheaper option since Calais Campbell is at the end of his career. Let's go to another defensive addition I think would be great for this team. You need a cornerback. You need to add another cornerback next to Christian Gonzalez. And I think finding more connections with Mike Vrabel, and this he does have a connection. Asante Samuel Jr. Now, Asante Samuel Jr. has been with the Chargers his entire career, so there aren't really any connections with him personally with Mike, but Asante Samuel Jr. has a father named Asante Samuel. And Asante Samuel played with the Patriots, was with the Patriots from 2003 to 2008. Mike was with the Patriots from 2001 to 2008. Spent a lot of years with Asante. And I'm sure he's been around Asante Samuel Jr. as well. And you need a corner. You need to add in another corner next to Christian Gonzalez. Asante Samuel Jr. could be a nice fit. 4 games, 4 starts this year. Was injured most of the season. But something that's probably better to go off of was what he did last year. Last year, 17 games, 16 starts, 2 picks, returned those 2 picks for 8 yards. The year before, 2022, 17 games, 15 starts, returned those for 11 yards, 2 picks the year before. He's a pretty good lockdown corner. And he's been really good with the Chargers, and I think he'd be a good fit for this team. Now, there are still so much more needs for this team, and I'm going to go over 2 more of them, and it's linebacker. And I think adding in a guy like E.J. Speed, who's with the Indianapolis Colts, would be a good fit. And that's getting back to more connections with Mike, Vrabel, and E.J. Speed has connections with Mike. I mean, spent so much time going up against Mike Vrabel in the AFC South, E.J. Speed being with the Colts his entire career, going up against Mike Vrabel, and he's a really good linebacker. Over 100 tackles this year, and I think he'd be a really nice fit. And then, obviously, last one is you need a safety. You need to add in another safety. Really, you need to add in a free safety, which I think would be really good for this team. And, this is another Indianapolis Colt, another guy that Mike has faced a lot in his career as a head coach, going up against the Colts in the AFC South. And that's Julian Blackmon. Julian Blackmon's a really good safety, and I think he'd be a really good addition for this Patriots team. And, I don't know how many, getting into some of the Patriots' own free agents, I don't know how many of the Patriots' own free agents are brought back to New England. I think maybe they look at bringing back Joey Sly, the kicker. I think they maybe look at bringing back Jonathan Jones, a corner, potentially. But those are some of the guys I think would be great to bring in, and you can make that work with how much money you have to spend. So my thing is what this team would look like. You'd have Mike Vrabel as the head coach. You'd have Josh McDaniels as the offensive coordinator. Drake Mays at quarterback. He has T. Higgins and DeAndre Hopkins and Demario Douglas and Matthew Golden to throw the ball to. Also other wide receivers like Jalen Polk and Keyshawn Boutte. And at tight end, he has Hunter Henry and Tommy Tremble, who are two really good tight ends. At running back, he has Stevenson. He has Hampton, who's a former teammate of his. Antonio Gibson. The offensive line is definitely upgraded with Ronnie Stanley, and Will Campbell, and also had some other players before that. And then with the defense, you had an Asante Samuel to put him next to Christian Gonzalez, which makes their secondary much more tough. You had Julian Blackman to put him next to Kyle Duggar. And then the defensive line gets a little bit buffed up with Calais Campbell and Chase Young. And then you get the linebacker core a little bit nicer with EJ Speed. And I think that probably turns the Patriots into a 7-9 win team, possibly. If not, maybe more. But let me know your thoughts on my offseason plan for the Patriots, and what do you want the Patriots to do this offseason? That's the video. Hope you guys enjoyed, and peace out.